When Alex Ruiz, a 42-year-old CEO worth roughly $160 million, walked out of a boardroom in Madrid's upscale Salamanca neighborhood on a bitter December afternoon, the last thing he ever expected to see was his 73-year-old mother, Carmen Ruiz, sitting on the frozen sidewalk, huddled against a young homeless guy in ripped, filthy clothes. The cold was brutal. Snow had started falling on the designer streets, and there she was. The woman who'd raised him in a fully staffed mansion, the widow of one of Spain's most respected tycoons, shivering while a total stranger with nothing wrapped his grimy blanket around her and used his own body to block the wind. Alex felt the world freeze. He sprinted toward them, panic choking him. How did his mother end up here? Why was she alone? Who was this kid? What he'd learn in the next few minutes wouldn't just change how he saw the stranger. It would force him to face truths about himself he'd ignored for decades. Truths about what actually matters when everything else crumbles. Madrid was glowing under Christmas lights that Friday night. Salamanca sparkled, but the wind off the mountain sliced straight through you. Alex had just closed a $32 million deal, another win in a career that had made him one of Spain's most powerful businessmen. Son of the late Alberto Ruiz, he'd turned the family fortune into something obscene. He was already thinking about his next meeting, Rolex glinting, mind on the next set of numbers. He was supposed to have dinner with his mom that night, same as every Friday. Carmen insisted on the tradition. He showed up because he felt obligated. That's when he saw her. Half a block away, two figures were pressed against a building. One was obviously homeless, early 20s, clothes torn and dirty. The other, leaning on him, wore a camel cashmere coat Alex would have recognized blindfolded. His heart stopped. Mom. He ran. Carmen should have been safe at home in their gated estate in La Moraleja, chauffeur, personal assistant, full staff. She had no business on a city sidewalk in a snowstorm. When he reached them, the full picture hit him. His mother looked pale, shaking, completely lost. The young guy was holding her gently, his thin blanket tucked around her shoulders, his own body shielding her from the wind. He was talking to her in a low, soothing voice. Relief, terror, confusion, and gratitude slammed into Alex all at once. The kid looked up. Dark, sharp eyes, worried, not threatening. Alex dropped to his knees. It took Carmen several long seconds to recognize him. When she finally did, she gave a weak smile and started mumbling about being lost. The stranger explained he'd found her wandering, scared and confused, about 30 minutes earlier. The cold was dangerous for someone her age. He'd sat her down, given her his only blanket, and stayed. He didn't have a phone to call 911. Alex stared at this guy who owned literally nothing and realized, like a punch to the chest, that in half an hour this kid had done more for his mother than he had in months. He called the driver and an ambulance. While they waited on the icy sidewalk, the young man kept the blanket tight around Carmen, shivering hard himself. Alex asked his name. Diego. Diego Morales. 27. 2 years on the street. Before the ambulance doors closed, Alex pulled out his wallet and tried to hand over almost €1,000. Diego looked at the cash, shook his head, and said he didn't help people, not for money. Any decent human being would have done the same. Then he picked up his blanket and disappeared into the snow. Alex stood there, money in hand, watching him vanish. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed the nightmare. Severe disorientation, almost certainly early-stage Alzheimer's. She couldn't be left alone anymore. That night Alex couldn't stop thinking about Diego. He had every resource on earth and hadn't been there. A broke, freezing stranger had protected his mom and given her his only blanket. He decided right then, he had to find that kid. 3 days later, after hiring 24/7 nurses and rearranging his entire life, he went back to Salamanca. He walked the streets, asked in stores, most people ignored the guy in the $10,000 suit asking about a homeless man, until he finally spotted a small group around a burning barrel in an alley behind a 5-star restaurant. Diego was there. He looked shocked and wary when Alex approached. Alex raised his hands peacefully and asked if they could talk. Diego nodded, and they stepped away. Alex explained the Alzheimer's diagnosis. Diego's face filled with genuine worry and asked if there was anything he could do. Alex asked why he'd turned down the money. Diego said taking cash would have turned a human act into a transaction. It would have felt wrong. Over the next hour, Diego told his story. He'd been an architecture student at Madrid's top engineering school, talented, big dreams. Senior year, his parents died in a car wreck. Only child, no other family. Depression swallowed him whole. He dropped out, lost his apartment. No address, no regular job. Shelters were full or unsafe. 2 years later he was still on the street, just surviving. Alex listened, stunned that the system had let someone this smart fall so far, and yet he'd kept his decency intact. He made an offer, a real job at his company, maintenance, solid pay, a real way out. Diego was skeptical. Why would a billionaire do that? Alex was honest, because you saved my mom when I didn't. Because I hate seeing talent wasted. And maybe because I need to do one decent thing to balance all the years I only cared about money. Diego accepted, on one condition: he wanted to earn every penny, not be some rich guy's charity case. Monday morning Alex got to the office tower early, half expecting Diego not to show. At 9 a.m. sharp, security called, "There's a kid in the lobby for you." Diego was there, clean, haircut, wearing the best clothes he owned, looking terrified. Alex walked him through HR himself: new work clothes, gym access, company ID, decent starting wage. The first weeks were rough, but Diego worked like his life depended on it, early in, late out, never complaining. When he got his first real paycheck, Alex saw tears in his eyes. First money he'd earned in 2 years. He rented a tiny room in a cheaper neighborhood. They started grabbing coffee. Diego was sharp, funny in a blunt way, and saw the world differently. One day he asked about Carmen. Alex opened up about the disease and the brutal days. Diego listened like someone who understood irreversible loss. Alex invited him to dinner so Carmen could meet the guy who'd saved her. It was magic. On a good day, Carmen lit up talking Gaudi and Madrid architecture with Diego. He was patient and kind when she got confused, gently bringing her back. After that, Diego became a regular visitor. It gave Alex breathing room and gave Carmen more happy moments than she'd had in months. Diego started to heal too: steady paycheck, a roof, hope. The hollow look left his eyes. He put on weight. He started talking about night classes. 3 months after that freezing sidewalk, life had rhythm again. Then came the call that almost broke everything. Friday afternoon, Diego had fallen off a faulty ladder on a job site, 13 feet, broken leg, cracked ribs. Not fatal, but surgery and at least 2 months off work. Alex raced to the hospital, guilt eating him alive. He promised Diego his job and full pay were safe, best doctors, whatever he needed. That night, doped up on morphine, Diego admitted he was terrified: rent only paid through the end of the month, no savings, 2 months without income meant back on the street. Alex didn't hesitate: "You're moving into the house until you're healed." Diego tried to argue. Alex shut it down. "You took care of my mom. Now we take care of you. This isn't charity, it's family." 3 days later Diego was discharged to the estate. He got a huge sunny bedroom with its own bath and balcony. On Carmen's clear days she brought him meals and chatted. On bad days Diego calmly reoriented her with endless patience. Alex started working from home more, partly for his mom, mostly because he wanted to be around Diego. They ate together, watched movies, talked until 2 a.m. Alex found himself confessing fears he'd never told anyone. One night Carmen had a terrifying episode. She didn't know where she was, panicked. Alex couldn't calm her. Diego dragged himself out of bed, ribs screaming, and talked her down until she fell asleep peaceful. Alex watched with tears running down his face and realized Diego wasn't just grateful or obligated, he was family. Then Alex's old business partner Rodrigo Mendez showed up, ruthless, hungry for the next shady deal. Alex shot him down cold. Rodrigo was stunned. "What happened to you?" Alex glanced at the garden where Diego and Carmen were laughing. "My priorities changed. Some things are worth more than money." Rodrigo followed his gaze, recognized Diego, and smirked. "Diego Morales? We go way back." Later Alex dug. What he found made his blood boil. Rodrigo and Diego had been friends in college. Senior year, big design competition. Diego got accused of plagiarism, expelled, reputation destroyed. Rodrigo won the award. Old posts and anonymous accounts hinted Rodrigo had stolen Diego's project and framed him to remove the competition. It happened right before Diego's parents died. The double blow explained everything. Alex confronted Diego that night. Diego went white but didn't deny it. After burying his parents, he just didn't have the fight left to prove the truth. Alex offered to ruin Rodrigo, every lawyer, every contact. Diego shook his head. "Let it go. Looking backward only makes you bitter. I'm building something new." That grace floored Alex more than any revenge could have. 2 months later Diego was healed. He could have gone back to his rented room, but Alex and Carmen begged him to stay. The house was too big and too empty without him. Diego agreed, on condition he paid his way, cooking, chores, whatever needed doing. A new normal settled in. Diego worked part-time, took night classes, cared for Carmen during the day. Alex worked from home more. The mansion finally felt like a home. One spring afternoon, on one of Carmen's rare clear days, she called both men into the living room, took their hands, and spoke with startling clarity. She knew her mind was going. Soon she wouldn't recognize her own son. But before that happened she needed to say this. To Alex, she was proud of the man he'd become lately. Not the billionaire, but the son who finally remembered how to be human. To Diego. Thank you for bringing light to her last chapter, for treating her with dignity even when she forgot his name, for being the second son she never had. Then she put their hands together and said it gave her peace knowing Alex wouldn't be alone, that these two had saved each other in ways they might never fully understand. Diego cried like a child. In the months that followed, Carmen faded fast. Eventually she didn't know anyone consistently, but she always calmed when Diego was near. Diego put his job and school on hold to care for her full-time. He studied dementia care, sat with her day and night. One night after a brutal day, Alex found Diego on the terrace staring at the stars. Diego said quietly, "This is the purpose I was looking for out there on the street. Everything I went through led me here, to this family." Alex admitted Diego had become the brother he never had. Diego smiled through tears. "That freezing day turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me." Carmen passed the following spring, peacefully, with both of them at her side. Diego noticed first, closed her eyes gently, and held Alex while he broke down. At the funeral hundreds showed up, but Diego gave the eulogy, about a woman who, even while losing her mind, showed kindness to a homeless stranger and taught that a person's worth isn't in their bank account. Afterward, in the empty mansion, Alex told Diego he'd understand if he wanted to move on. Diego asked if he could stay just a while longer. This was home now, and Alex was family. Alex hugged him like he was afraid he'd disappear. A year later Diego graduated architecture with honors. Alex sat in the audience crying like a proud dad. Top firms begged to hire him. Diego took a job at the best studio in Madrid, on condition he could design social housing. His years on the street gave him insight no degree ever could. Alex, inspired, shifted part of his company into affordable housing, hired Diego as lead consultant, and together they built a groundbreaking transitional complex, shelter, mental health support, job training, beautiful design that said you matter. They opened on the anniversary of Carmen's death. They named it the Carmen Ruiz Center. 50 people at a time got the same second chance Diego had. At the ribbon cutting, reporters asked about their unlikely partnership. Alex laughed. Nothing unlikely about it. Two guys who showed up for each other when it counted and figured out real wealth is measured in lives changed. Diego added, "We're all a couple of bad breaks from the street. How we treat the people who fall is how we'll be judged." That night in the garden they looked back on 2 years. Alex had gone from a cold, money-obsessed workaholic to someone who finally got it. Diego had gone from sleeping under bridges to award-winning architect with purpose bigger than himself. Neither would have made it without small kindnesses, a blanket on a freezing day, a job offered instead of cash, choosing to pay it forward. Sometimes, Alex said, I think about that terrifying moment seeing Mom on the sidewalk, how the worst day of my life became the best thing that ever happened to me. Diego smiled. Darkest nights, brightest mornings. They talked about Carmen, how proud she'd be, how her illness forced Alex to choose people over profit, how caring for her together forged a bond nothing could break. Both had found love, Diego with a social worker from the center, Alex with a doctor who'd treated Carmen. They laughed about finally building real lives instead of just bank accounts. Alex said he didn't miss the extra millions one bit, these had been the richest years of his life. Diego grinned. A billionaire with a soul and a former homeless guy who kept his, meeting each other feels like fate. They sat quiet under the stars, two men from opposite worlds, now brothers in every way that counts. It all started on a frozen sidewalk with one simple act. A young man with nothing gave his only blanket to a scared old lady. That single choice changed everything, lives saved, purpose found, family built. Because this isn't a story about rich versus poor. It's a story about what happens when we choose to be human, and how one moment of kindness can rewrite destinies. And that lesson, learned on an icy December sidewalk, was worth more than every dollar in the world.